Want to watch football without the restrictions of blackouts or cable? Check out expressvpn.com to help you get access to all the live games. Sign up today using the link in the description to get 3 free months.
Yo to Bo fam, it's the director. Chargers fans, I gotta tell you, man, I am ready for this Chargers versus Bears game coming up on Sunday. I'm sure I've talked your ears off about it, but I will be at this game. For anybody that's interested in hitting up me and the wife, Mrs. Director, we'll be at Thunder Alley for the first couple hours before the game starts. Should be a very good time. But beyond that, beyond my excitement to go to this game, I do think that we need this game as a Chargers fandom, dude. I mean, not to say I'm counting my chickens or hens before they hatch, but I think the Chargers need to grab a win here. And they need to do it in a spectacular fashion, man. I'm not saying let's go out there and grab, a 16-13 win and go back to the locker room and feel good. No, I want one of those games where, stop, he's already dead. Because I think we all, like a punching bag in the basement, need to find some kind of way to get this aggression out, man. That was a tough start to the season. Emotions are everywhere. Chargers fans are everywhere in terms of our emotional turmoil. We got to let it out, man. I hope the Chargers team, the coaches, the players really have the same mindset on Sunday. I want to see a bloodbath. Happy Halloween, Bolt fam. So we're going to go over this game, what I think the Chargers need to do in order to accomplish that, and find a way to right the track offensively. I think confidence-wise is what I'm hoping the Chargers find in this game most of all. So before we do get started, guys, huge shout-out to the sponsor today, man. Underdog Fantasy, the best fantasy platform on the web. If you guys have yet to take advantage of one of our deals that we've secured for the Bolt fam, now is the time to do so. Sunday Night Football. We got this special for you newcomers in here. Half a yard for Justin Herbert. If you think you can handle half a yard, add this to your entry. It's pretty much a free entry right there, man. Again, use code DIRECTOR, match your first deposit up to $100. And Bolt fam, if you've been waiting to enter, this is definitely the week to do so with the Justin Herbert special. Before we do kick off, hit us up the like and sub if you do enjoy this Chargers content. Small amount of time you guys take to hit the like, sub, bell notification helps me out a lot. Let's jump into it. Lights, camera, action. Your Chargers versus Bears. What we'll call this one, the Get Right Game preview. Chargers need to find some confidence this week, and I do think the Bears provide an excellent environment for the Bolts to bounce back. Let's go ahead like we always do in these videos, though, and start off with our injury report. Of course, we want to make sure that our Chargers are going in as healthy as possible. And unfortunately, there's just not going to be some names out there this week. Some of the bigger ones to pay attention to. Looks like Austin Ekeler should be back. I think we expected that as soon as last week. Gerald Everett, though, this is a kind of a new one that popped up, I think, during the game last week versus the Chiefs. Now is the time for the Chargers to start really thinking about what are we doing at tight end now and for the future? Because with Gerald Everett not being in this game, we're going to have a big performance from Donald Parham. But even beyond that, I do think the Chargers, who should have drafted a tight end this last draft, are going to have to get creative in this game. I don't know about his status on this one. Again, I'm filming this a couple of days ahead. I will be out of town starting on Thursday, and we won't be back until after the weekend, of course, to catch the game. But when in time of the report here, we do have some names to go over. Alohi Gilman getting some limited practices in. I don't know if guys like Alohi Gilman, Jalen Guyton, Sebastian Joseph Day, if these guys are going to be ready. I think more specifically these two. Of course, Jalen Guyton coming off injured reserve. That'd be a pretty huge help to this team. We could definitely use his speed. But Alohi Gilman, it feels like the defense has just been completely bad since he's not been on the field playing that opposite safety of Derwin James. We can just hope and pray that he's available for this game. As for Khalil Mack, don't worry. It's going to be a non-injury related. It's a rest day for him. And then other than that, Josh Palmer, who did not practice this week, is a little bit concerning. We don't know what's going to happen with him. Of course, we did see him spring up on the injury report last week. He ended up playing, having a really good game. We can kind of hope the same thing's about to happen this upcoming week, because Josh Palmer, I want to see you in person, my friend. Please let me see that number 5 out there on the field repping the Lightning Bolts. All right, let's move on to the Bears now. Now, the Bears have a couple of different odd ones on here. Illness to Jaquan Brisker, their safety. Don't know what that means. Chargers have had some illnesses, especially even at the safety position with JT Woods, who I've heard that he's back to practicing on the side there. That is certainly one to watch out for. You've got Nate Davis, who's not practicing with an ankle injury. Justin Fields, which will be the big one. We'll talk about him. He's more than likely not going to play. From what I've heard, Justin Fields is going to be a no-go for this game. Apologies for it being kind of cut off on the side here. Other than that, Quinton Johnson should be a name to monitor as well. He's going through concussion protocol, so who knows if he's going to play. Terrell Smith, who I think is their corner, is also dealing with an illness, probably, going through that DB room right now. And then Darnell Wright, offensive lineman, not practicing there too. Of course, the biggest one being Justin Fields, and we will talk about that one on today's video. So let's go ahead and start this one off with a topic that I think is pretty important for the Chargers. For me, the director wanted to see a solid performance on Sunday, and it's going to involve our franchise quarterback and Justin Herbert. This segment called Herbert Strikes Back. All right. I don't think it's been any secret that Herbert has been struggling in a couple of games this season. He hasn't had a bad year. He really hasn't. I think his stats would say it all. It's just when it comes to crunch time and being able to clutch, it's been really difficult for Justin Herbert. I think there's a lot of surrounding circumstances around that. But I think this is a game where we can start to right the ship a little bit. Now, Herbert is averaging, again, 265 yards a game, a touchdown and a half per game. That looks pretty good on the stat sheet, right? You should be able to win football games with that stat sheet with any quarterback in the league. The last few weeks, though, have been pretty ugly. And again, a lot of it has to do with his ability to clutch. The Kansas City Chiefs, we had some opportunities come back on that one. Didn't happen, right? The past couple of games, it's kind of been the same story retold over and over again. And his yardage, again, it's been solid even through those losses. But throwing 4 interceptions on top of that last 3 games has also been kind of rough. Not being able to clutch has been kind of rough. I do think this is the game and the environment that Justin Herbert can find himself bouncing back and setting himself up with the good momentum for the middle and end part of the season. Of course, we're getting close to the middle of the season already, which is pretty insane. The Chargers need to find a way to get this man right, and I think this is the perfect opponent for that. So with that, we're going to segue into this segment. Chicago, the perfect passing get right opponent. I know it's kind of a mouthful, but trust me, it's important. The Chargers need this game. And more importantly than needing this game, they need to take advantage of this opportunity with this particular opponent. Now, don't overlook the Bears as a football team. They can at times look pretty dang good, especially defensively. They can have their moments, right? I think we saw that last week versus the Vegas Raiders. But the run D, I will say, I think if you're going to, take anything about that defense and say, wow, they're really good, their run defense is certainly going to be that. I think they're a top 5 unit in the league, which means that they've allowed the 5th least, or at least the 5th least yards to the ground on defense so far this season. However, that being said, they do have their strong points. They do have their moments. They are a pretty bad football team when it comes to the pass, though. They've allowed the 4th most yards per game. They're going to be one of the worst passing defense that we face this year. And this is the time, if you're the Chargers, if you're Kellen Moore, if you're Brandon Staley, if you're Justin Herbert, if you're the Chargers fans, this is the time where we take advantage of that. We must. We have to. Because with the Chargers' own passing D being at the bottom of the league, again, number 32, right? I think we should see plenty of the offense on the field this week. Plenty of opportunities for Justin Herbert and plenty of opportunities for Kellen Moore to really get this passing game back on track. Because obviously Herbert needs a jolt of confidence, right? We need to get this man back to form. He's a top 5 quarterback in the league. Hasn't looked like it the past couple of weeks. I think we can get right this game. But this is also a great opportunity to tune in our passing attack, to tune in what this offense is going to be. Because like I've said before in many videos now since Mike Williams has exited with a torn ACL, we need to find out what our identity is. I continue to be flabbergasted at the fact that we don't have a backup plan. And if we do, we're not doing a very good job at executing it. Who are we without Mike Williams? My wife and I were just talking about this yesterday. Like, did we not have a backup plan for this? Did we just go into the season thinking, my goodness, is Mike Williams going to be part of the plan? 17 out of 17 games, no worries. We don't even have to, have a safety net in case he doesn't make it back on the field. It feels like there was no backup plan because the same plan of attack that I saw week 1 with Mike Williams kind of feels like the same plan of attack that we saw week 6. And that's not going to work without Mike Williams. Without Mike Williams, it's really tough to give these, wide receivers the same kind of opportunity. Sure, we saw last week a ball or two thrown in the direction of Keenan Allen, and of course Josh Palmer. He came down with a really nice catch in traffic. Every once in a while, that's going to work, but I don't think that can be part of your game plan anymore. Like a solidified, like this is what you're doing when it's crunch time. You're throwing it up to Big Will, and we're coming down with those big plays. That's not part of our identity anymore, at least not this season. Now is the perfect opportunity versus the fourth worst defense in the league versus the pass to form a new identity as a passing team. What are you? Are you an underneath passing team? Are we going to regress back to the Joe Lombardi style of things where we're hitting the underneath game over and over and over? You might have to. I hope not. I don't think Kellen Moore is going to lean in that direction. But then how do you get your other guys open? Like Keenan Allen and Josh Palmer and most recently Quinton Johnson. Well, that's going to segue us into the next segment here. No more excuses. Okay, I'm done. It's time to unleash Quinton Johnson or suffer the consequences. And this is why I'm segueing in at this particular time in the video, is because I think Quinton Johnson could end up being the key to success this season. And I think Kellen Moore ultimately is the man wielding that key. And he's going to be the one that has to unlock that door and unleash that potential. But I think Quinton Johnson is being grossly underutilized right now. So far, QJ has just 7 catches on 15 targets for 64 yards and no score. And some of you will say, well, it's 15 targets, director. He's going to have to come up with more plays. I will say most of those targets that he did not catch, they were almost damn near impossible to come down with. They're almost uncatchable balls. Thrown 5-6 yards away from him. Maybe a lot of time. I think 2 or 3 of them were in traffic, which is definitely not his game. He does need to build that, but it's not his game. It's been a pitiful start for the rookie. And again, maybe it's not all his fault. Kellen Moore, yes, he's had, I would say, a pretty solid start to rebuilding and reshaping this Chargers offense. Last week, you wouldn't think so. But ultimately, overall, when you take a look at the season, I think he's done a pretty good job. But some of the bumps in the road, the biggest, in my opinion, being his lack of usage for the Chargers' first-round pick in QJ. Herbert actually also does share some blame here as well. As, I think last game, actually, I think it was 2 games ago, where I started asking my audience during the live streams, keep an eye on number 1. Is he getting open? Was he open that last play? Could he have made a difference here? And we've caught a good number of plays where Johnston was wide open downfield but never targeted. And what's strange is that if you were to watch the preseason and camp, it would seem that Justin Herbert and Quinton Johnson had bonded and created some solid chemistry. In the season, you would think that they have a vendetta against each other. We're not seeing a lot of, chemistry there. That has to change this week. Because we're not going to face another passing defense like this until I think week 14 versus the Denver Broncos, who you would think would be a great passing defense. No, they've been downright awful. But this passing defense that we're about to face versus the Bears, this will be the worst that we face for the rest of the season. We're not going to face a pass defense like this for a while. As a matter of fact, the other teams like the Jets, the Patriots, the Lions, all these guys are kind of middle of the pack, if not better. This is kind of like the game where you need to find some success and find something to build on in the passing game. And I think the key, again, is to unlock Quinton Johnson. This is our best shot to get QJ and our passing weapons ready for the rest of the season. You have to unleash number 1. And by the way, guys, during the game and in Thunder Rally, I will be wearing number 1 to this game. I had pre-ordered a new jersey in powder blue that says the director. Unfortunately, that did not come in on time, which I ordered it like a month and a half ago. Either way, you guys can catch me wearing a custom jersey if you guys want to say hi. All right? Next up, let's talk a little bit about this man, Austin Ekeler. Austin Ekeler, probably making that face for a couple of different reasons, right? This offseason was kind of rough for this guy. He did end up getting that, negotiation on his contract, but has really struggled this season. This segment called the Ekeler Struggle Bus. He hasn't looked great past his week 1 performance versus Miami. I would say that what we saw in week 1, I was like, holy crap, we have a run game, right? We finally have that part of our offense to lean on and help Justin Herbert with. And the key to unlocking that for us was Austin Ekeler. My goodness, can this guy run? This guy's awesome. Then he goes out and he doesn't really look the same when he comes back. And this really puts an emphasis on what we should do with Austin Ekeler going forward. Not to say that we shouldn't run him. Of course we should run him, right? I don't know if this is the week that you get that run game back in track, though, because, again, the Bears are a top 5 defense versus the run. This week looks to be another rough test on the ground. Tough calls for Austin Ekeler. But honestly, Austin Ekeler, what made him special to me as a Chargers fan and a football fan and a fantasy football fan these past several years hasn't been how great he is on the ground. He's been okay on the ground. He's been pretty good on the ground. It's been what he is through the air. We haven't seen as much of that this season with Austin Ekeler. Let's go back to that a little bit this week. The Bears very bad, especially bad versus the pass, pretty good versus the run. It would make most sense to utilize a receiving back as a receiving weapon during a game where the receiver is going to get open more often than the run game is going to have space to operate. I would just say let's lean back on Eckler's, signature move in the receiving game, at least for this week, and see if that sets us up for what we can do the rest of the season. Because again, I'm not going to go to bat for Joe Lombardi very often. Matter of fact, I may even regret saying this. But Joe Lombardi, if he did one thing right in his time with the Chargers, it was supplementing a run game with an underneath passing game, which basically means you're taking the Chargers and Austin Ekeler and you're utilizing him like he did an Alvin Kamara, and you're supplementing what you would be getting on the ground with these underneath passes to the running back and sometimes a tight end and maybe a mesh concept to the wide receiver, whatever. You're finding ways to supplement the run game with an underneath passing game. With the Chargers run game looking the way it has been the past several weeks, and with Austin Ekeler looking like he's struggling on the ground, I think we may need to lean back on that just a little bit. It doesn't mean we need to change our identity in terms of what we want to do out deep. I think Justin Herbert's average depth of target has been so much improved this season. I think that can remain the same. But when it comes to our running game, I think we need to lean a little bit more on that. Blah. Do I feel gross inside? A little bit, but happy Halloween. Is it trick or treat? You guys let me know in the comment section below. Next up, talk a little bit about Donald Parm. Now, Parm, again, like we mentioned at the top of the show, he might need to step up this week, especially with Gerald Everett likely out. Again, we're recording this on Wednesday. I don't know what the status report or the injury report is going to be on Gerald Everett at this time. But if Chicken Parm is the guy at tight end, I would really hope to see the Chargers try and force some mismatches because they have a good counter to Donald Parm. And that's their middle linebacker and Tremaine Edmonds. He's a decent coverage linebacker. He's 6'5", and that's really the biggest reason why you have Donald Parm on the field is that mismatch ability. Even at 6'5", Donald Parm is bigger than Tremaine Edmonds. But usually when we're targeting Donald Parm, it's because he's lined up against a 5'10" cornerback and there's really nothing that they can do to stop him. I would hope that the Chargers find a way to get some mismatches involved with Chicken Parm this week. The Bears are a middle-of-the-pack defense versus tight ends. As long as we can avoid Tremaine Edmonds, I think we can have a decent game for Chicken Parm. Finally, last couple of points here. Fields, or is it Bagent, right? Bagent, Fields or Bagent at quarterback this week. Now, I think the biggest threat this week would have been Justin Fields. The Chargers have been a particularly bad team versus running quarterbacks for several years now. A long time. As long as I can remember, we have not been a great team at stopping or slowing down running quarterbacks. This week, though, it feels like it's not going to happen. It's going to be the Bagent show, right? It seems that Fields is doubtful to suit up, which leaves us with this Bagent guy that, honestly, there's not a lot of tape out there for. Of course, he's got the full game last week, a little bit before that, too. But he's shown some flash, right? This guy definitely is not someone you want to sweep under the rug, but he's certainly not as big of a threat. I've been asked a lot about this since his performance last week for the Bears versus the Raiders. Like, director, are we worried about this Bagent guy? The Bears just dropped 30 on the Vegas Raiders. Are the Chargers exposed here? Definitely don't underestimate him, but the Bears' dominant win over the Raiders last week was as a result of a monster running game by Foreman, and their defense, I think, got a score in there too. I think in the end, he had under 200 yards and a touchdown, something like that. It's nothing crazy. Certainly, you got to watch out for him, especially with the Chargers' passing defense being as bad as it is. But I think Bagent's going to have his hands full with the Chargers' dominant pass rush this week. I don't think it's something that he really had to worry about his first couple of outings. Of course, he had Max Crosby to worry about. But outside of that, it's going to be an interesting one. Got to see what Fields versus Bagent, or I should say what Bagent has to offer versus the Chargers. But again, kind of a bummer because I did actually purchase these tickets a long time ago because I kind of did want to see Justin Fields and how the Chargers were able to stop him. Either way, though, I think Bagent's going to provide a good opportunity for the Bears defense to gain some momentum, and the Chargers got to watch out for that. But more specifically, I think the Chargers are going to need to watch out for this man right here. Let's grab this one first. The Foreman worry is going to be this segment here real quick, one of the last segments. I'll say that Foreman's breakout last week is a little bit concerning. Not even breakout. I think I remember thinking back in the day when he was it with the Houston Texans? I was like, man, this guy might have a future in the NFL. And then he disappeared for a while. And then he comes back and puts down 3 touchdowns in one game. Absolutely insane. He did so right before the Chargers game this Sunday on prime time. That is a little bit concerning. And I do think the Bears rolling out with Bade at quarterback, I would suspect that they're going to have an aggressive game plan involving their run. And I wouldn't put it past the Chargers to give them another huge day. Like, wow, here comes this Deontay Foreman, 2 weeks in his return and he's got 6 touchdowns. Like, that would suck. But I will say our run defense has been in a good spot this year. I think we've allowed under 100 yards a game, which is pretty huge for us. If you're Chargers fans and you've been a Chargers fan past couple of seasons, yeah, I'll take under 100 yards any day of the week. But it's also something I think that the Bears are going to put more resources behind this week. I think they're going to say, hey, man, we're a running football team versus the Chargers, and we're going to run it down their throats no matter what. Got to watch out for it. But fortunately for us, the run defense has been a bright spot on the defense this year. And I think the Chargers team is up for the challenge on defense. So finally, to wrap up this video, what is my score prediction on this one? Well, like I said at the top of the show, I don't want this to be just a simple get in, get out, 16-13. We grab the win. Let's move on to the Jets. No, I want this to be a therapeutic win. Again, I want this to be the stop, he's already dead game for the Chargers. I want us to get in there, beat this team to a bloody pulp, and get this team's confidence back in several areas. So my prediction is going to be Bears 16, Chargers 34, and like the Kellen Moore that we were hoping to sign at the top of the season, I think he's going to pour it on, and I hope that ends up being the case for the Chargers in this one. Is it possible we lose this one, even flip the score? Absolutely, it's been that kind of season, but I do believe that the Chargers, if they can more so grab their momentum in this game, can do themselves a big service going forward in terms of their momentum. We've got to find a way to get back on track with our confidence in terms of the offense, and I think that can happen this week. Well, in the comment section, but let me know your guys' score predictions, what you think is going to happen this game, and let me know by typing 1 in the chat if you're going to be at this game. Look for me. I'll be in Thunder Alley for at least 2 or 3 hours before the game, meeting up and chatting with Chargers fans. It should be a very good time. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining me. This has been The Director. We'll see you at the game, and as always, bolt up, stay frosty, and remember, no live stream this week. We'll be at the game. Much love, Chargers fans.